Warning: this video contains super awesome content not suitable for people who don't enjoy super awesomeness.
Yo, what is up YouTube? If you are tired of guessing which SMG actually wins fights in Bloodstrike, this video is for you. Today, I am breaking down the top 5 SMGs you should be using in 2026. These are going to be based on real close-range fights and actual gameplay, not just stats. These are the SMGs that consistently win building pushes, fast flanks, and endgame fights. If you enjoy this video, do well to like, turn on post notifications for more videos, and of course, subscribe. Before we begin, shout out to my channel members. If you want to join the channel membership, use the link in the description below. Anyway, as the video goes on, let me know in the comments which gun does not deserve to be on this list and which one should replace it. Remember, SMGs only.
Big shout out to today's sponsor, Wingstore, the most trusted and affordable top-up platform for Bloodstrike. With Wingstore, you could top up gold instantly at the lowest prices and with 100% safety guaranteed. No more overpriced payments or waiting hours to receive your recharge. It is always fast, reliable, and secure. They even support every payment method you can think of, from bank transfers all the way to crypto. So if you need a quick recharge before jumping back into a match, Wingstore is the way to go. Check the link in the description and pin comment and start recharging now.
Coming in at number 5 is the Vector. This gun is very light and feels great for movement, but the damage is not strong enough to rely on when you're a little bit distant from the enemy. One thing I noticed immediately is that the Vector is way better in hipfire than ADS. Once you aim down sight, the gun has a lot of shake, and tracking enemies becomes uncomfortable, especially in fast fights. The fire rate is extremely high, which helps in one-on-one situations, but it also means the recoil pattern is not beginner-friendly at all. This SMG is decent for early games, solo mode, and less intense fights because it struggles when you are going against a full squad, as you would continuously reload almost every second. I honestly would have placed the Uzi over this, but after the recent nerf, the Uzi just feels apologetic right now. Sadly, the Vector itself also got hit with a nerf, and that pushed it from a former top 3 meta SMG all the way down to number 5. Now let me quickly show you the exact loadout I use on the Vector and why. First, I am running the compensator on the muzzle. This is mainly to calm down the recoil and make the spray a little more controllable because the Vector already shakes a lot, especially when you ADS. This just makes it feel less wild. For the barrel, I am using the MK11 barrel. This is here to push the range a bit and also help with recoil. Since the Vector damage already drops fast even at mid-range, this helps it stay useful even when the enemy is not directly in your face. On the underbarrel, I went with the lengthened vertical grip. This one is very important. It improves recoil control and also helps hipfire accuracy, which fits the Vector perfectly since this gun performs way better when you are hip-firing. For the optic, I usually use the iron sight, but I would not advise you to do that. You can pick any of the small scopes. As for me, I am using the KCO red dot sight. Nothing fancy here. Just a clean sight, so tracking enemies feels easier when you do decide to ADS. On the stock, I'm running the UBR collapsible stock. This is mainly to add more stability to the gun, since the Vector naturally feels shaky. And finally, for the magazine, I'm using the 60-round drum. The Vector burns bullets extremely fast, so this is almost mandatory. It lets you finish fights without reloading mid-spray, and gives you a better chance if a second enemy shows up. Overall, this build is made to control the Vector shake, boost hipfire, and make it more reliable in close fights, since that is where this gun truly works best. Coming in at number 4 is the Bizon, and honestly, this SMG surprised me. The stability on this gun is really good. It is one of the few SMGs that almost feels like an assault rifle when you use it, especially at mid-range. The damage on it is better at a longer range than most SMGs, and the recoil pattern is very easy to learn, which makes it comfortable to use even in longer fights. On top of that, the hipfire accuracy is solid, so it still does pretty well in close-range situations. Even though the Bizon is a newer SMG, it has already worked its way very close to the meta list. It is not fully dominant yet, but it is extremely reliable and easy to trust. Now let me show you the exact loadout I am using on the Bizon and why this build works so well. For the muzzle, I am running the CQB muzzle device. This is mainly to boost hipfire accuracy and sprint to fire speed. It helps the Bizon stay sharp in close fights, so you are not too slow to react when someone suddenly appears in front of you. On the barrel, I am using the extended barrel. This is very important on the Bizon because it already feels good at mid-range, and this pushes that advantage even further. It helps the gun stay effective when enemies are not right in your face. For the stock, I went with the heavy stock. This is what gives the Bizon that stable, assault rifle-like feeling. It improves recoil control and makes the gun much easier to keep on target in longer sprays. On the rear grip, I am using the lightweight anti-slip grip. This one boosts sprint-to-fire speed, movement speed, and ADS speed, which balances out the heavy stock and keeps the Bizon feeling smooth and mobile. For the magazine, I am running the 64-round drum. This lets you take extended fights, handle multiple enemies, and not panic reload in the middle of a spray. And for optics, I am keeping the iron sight. The Bizon iron sight is already clean, and since this gun feels more like a stable SMG AR hybrid, you really do not need anything extra here. Overall, this build is made to maximize stability, extend its usable range, and still keep it fast enough for close-range fights, which is exactly what makes the Bizon so reliable. Coming in at number 3 is the MP5, and I honestly do not get why a lot of people are hating on this gun recently. Yes, it did get a heavy nerf, but I found a way around it by using more hipfire instead of ADS. The hipfire spread on the MP5 is tight, it feels great for movement, and the damage is still decent enough to win close-range fights. This is one of those SMGs that actually gives me confidence when pushing a squad, not just in one-on-one fights. You can say I am being biased, but in my opinion, the MP5 can easily sit in the top 3. If you are looking for the best hipfire SMG on this entire list, I would strongly recommend going with the MP5. Now let me show you the exact loadout I am using on the MP5, because this build is what really makes it shine. On the muzzle, I am using the SD suppressor. This boosts hipfire accuracy, improves range, and also helps with recoil control while keeping your shots quieter. Since I use the MP5 a lot for close aggressive plays, this makes it easier to stay on target and clean up fights without alerting the whole area. For the underbarrel, I went with the lengthened vertical grip. This helps with recoil control and hipfire accuracy, which is perfect for how I run this gun. It keeps the spray tight and makes hipfire way more reliable. On the stock, I am running no stock. This is a big part of the build. It boosts movement speed, ADS speed, and hipfire accuracy, which fits the MP5 playstyle perfectly. It makes the gun feel fast, light, and deadly in close fights. You lose some recoil control, but that is balanced by the grip and suppressor. For optics, I am using the Romeo 3 reflex sight. Clean sight, easy to track enemies, and it does not get in the way of close-range fights. But remember, optics are totally based on preference. And for the magazine, I am running the 50-round drum. This gives you room to fight more than one enemy without instantly reloading, which is very important when you are pushing squads. Overall, this build is made to maximize hipfire, movement, and close-range control, which is why I call the MP5 the best hipfire SMG on this list. Coming in at number 2 is the P90. The P90 used to be number 1 at some point, then it completely fell off, and honestly a lot of people forgot about it. But after a recent buff, the P90 has been revived, and many players do not even realize how powerful it is right now. I personally like the P90 a lot. It has been my most used SMG for the past 2 seasons. It feels stable both in ADS and hipfire, and even though it is very light, it is still easy to track enemies during intense fights. The movement feels great, and the fire rate is not overly crazy, but somehow the time to kill is better than most SMGs. This is one of those guns I can confidently take into heavy fights, knowing I will come out alive. Now let me show you the exact loadout I am using on the P90, because this build is a big reason why this gun feels so strong right now. For the muzzle, I am using the precision suppressor. This reduces the noise of the gun, improves recoil control, and also helps a bit with range. It keeps the P90 feeling smooth and controlled, while also letting you take fights without instantly pulling third parties. On the barrel, I am running the short barrel. This boosts movement speed, hipfire accuracy, ADS speed, and ADS movement speed. This is what keeps the P90 feeling light and fast, which is one of the main reasons I enjoy using it. For the underbarrel, I went with the spotted grip. This is mainly to improve recoil control. Even though the P90 already feels stable, this makes tracking enemies even easier during long sprays. On the stock, I am using the cheek rest. This further improves recoil control and keeps the gun very steady in both ADS and close-range fights. For optics, I am using the DX3 reflex sight. Clean sight, good visibility, and easy to track enemies during fast fights. Overall, this build is made to keep the P90 light and fast while locking down recoil, which is why it feels so reliable when you get into intense fights. Taking the number 1 spot is the UMP45, and honestly, this SMG just does everything right. I am not even the biggest fan of the UMP45 to be honest, but I cannot ignore how good it is and how many times enemies absolutely destroy me with it. It is simply reliable in almost every close and mid-range fight you take. The damage is solid, the recoil is easy to control, and it stays accurate whether you are ADS miss or hip firing. With the right loadout, it does not shake all over the place, and tracking enemies feels really easy. What really makes the UMP-45 stand out is something no other SMG has: the laser sight BAS attachment that gives you a tactical stance. This attachment takes the aim of the UMP-45 to a whole new level, making it much more stable and allowing you to keep your aim locked on enemies even at a distance. Now, this SMG is definitely not beginner-friendly, and it is not the best for movement since it feels a bit heavy and the reload is slightly long for an SMG. But this is the kind of gun you can take into ranked matches, push full squads, and survive endgame fights without second-guessing yourself. It might not have the fastest fire rate, but it deletes enemies fast and gives you confidence every single fight. If you want one SMG you can trust in 2026 without worrying about weird recoil or playstyle limits, the UMP-45 is the clear number one. Now let me show you the exact loadout I am using on the UMP-45, because this build is what turns it into the most reliable SMG in the game. For the muzzle, I am running the CQB muzzle device. This boosts hip fire accuracy and sprint to fire speed, which is very important since the UMP already feels a bit heavy. This makes it way more responsive in close fights. On the barrel, I am using the heavy barrel. This increases range and recoil control, which is one of the main reasons this gun dominates. It lets you take fights a little farther than most SMGs and still stay accurate. For the underbarrel, I went with the lengthened vertical grip. This further improves recoil control and also helps hip fire, making it easier to stay locked on enemies during sprays. On the stock, I am running no stock. This brings back movement speed, ADS speed, and overall responsiveness, balancing out the heavy barrel and keeping the gun from feeling too slow. For the magazine, I am using the 40-round drum. This gives you enough bullets to down enemies and still handle a second fight without instantly reloading. And finally, the most important part of this build, the tactical laser BAS. This gives you the tactical stance and improves precision, movement, and ADS speed. This attachment is what takes the UMP-45 to another level. It makes aiming feel way more stable and lets you keep your shots glued to enemies even at mid-range. Overall, this build is made to control recoil, extend range, and remove the heavy feeling of the UMP, while unlocking that tactical stance that no other SMG on this list can really abuse. That is why this gun feels so dominant in ranked and endgame fights. So quick recap before we wrap this up. At number 5, we have the Vector, with great movement and hip fire, but limited damage and not easy to control. Number 4 is the Bizon, which is very stable and reliable, especially if you like a more controlled SMG. At number 3, the MP5, the best hip fire SMG on this list, and still a confidence booster despite the nerf. Number 2 is the P90, recently buffed, extremely reliable, beginner-friendly, and one of the strongest all-round SMGs right now. And at number 1, the UMP-45, the most consistent and reliable SMG you can trust in 2026 if you are ready to actually master the tactical stance. Now that is my list for the top 5 SMGs in Bloodstrike for 2026, based purely on real gameplay and experience. Now I want to hear from you. Which SMG are you currently using in Bloodstrike? And do you agree or disagree with my number 1 pick? If you think another SMG deserves that top spot, drop it in the comments and let us talk about it. If this video helped you out, make sure you like the video and subscribe for more Bloodstrike guides and gameplay. I will catch you in the next one. It's your boy Knox. Peace.